Hello, everyone. This is Kevin Johnson of Leverage Consulting, and I have a special guest and a good friend of mine, Jenny Utz. Jenny has been a friend of ours for quite a while, and if you don't know Jenny Utz, she owns a property management company, Utz Property Management, and she's owned that I think for about 15 years now, right?
Yep.
And also been flipping and investing in real estate for about 13 years now. She also is a speaker. And if you've not heard her, if you see her on some kind of venue somewhere, or if you see something she's going to deliver, smart woman, and she's got a lot to offer, you want to listen to her. But also, and as I said, I've known her for quite a while. And it was funny I think it was about a week ago, she and I were talking. And I said, and all the clients I've worked with over time, sometimes I run across people where I say they happen to be a business person who happens to then work in an industry as opposed to someone who works in an industry who just happens to be in business. And I would definitely put Jenny in that space where she is a shrewd, smart businesswoman who happens to be in the real estate and property management business. So she and I talked a little bit the other day, and we thought we have to stop. We have to stop talking, and we need to get this and record it. So we set it up for us to put this together today. So welcome, and I think this is going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Thank you for all of those kind words.
Yeah, I only speak the truth.
Well, I appreciate it.
So Um, so with that said, there were two big key things you and I were talking about. I think we actually came up with a big laundry list, but we said let's kick this thing off, and depending on, I don't think you and I will run out of things to talk about in this, but
We usually don't.
no. So, but I think we narrowed it down to two big key areas we wanted to talk about today, and a lot of it has to do with the group that you've set up, Conquer.
Yes.
And I think kind of like your journey in the real estate business or just business in
Hmm.
general, because again, you've had your hand in a lot of different things.
Right.
So do you want to kick off the first thing?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things that we were talking about is what it looks like to overcome self-doubt and how, especially for me as a female entrepreneur, I started at a very young age. And so how I was able to progress, what that looked like, who was in my corner to help, and all of those things. So when I first started, I think I had mentioned to you, I was right out of college. I was 22 years old, 21 probably when I got my real estate license. I think that's when I first met Shelly and you. So I've known you for quite a while. And with
Five
that,
years, right?
yeah, it was just like yesterday. We won't say how long. But it was one of those things where I did not realize how full circle it would come that I would be able to be back with you guys. And it's just been great. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about was the self-doubt. I mean, I was right out of college. I was young. I was pregnant with my son. And so it felt like there were so many things against me as far as being able to easily make an excuse as to why something just wasn't going to work. My first year in real estate, I think I made $9,000. And so how am I supposed to raise my son off of that, And as I was growing the business, I knew that I wanted to invest that money back into the business. So I knew I had a long-term goal, but how do you overcome that self-doubt? Like maybe I just won't be able to do that one thing. And if that doesn't go right, am I going to have to move back in with my dad? What does that look like? How am I going to do that? And so one of the things that I did early on was I'm now, in terms of work, a creature of habit. I wake up first thing in the morning, just start checking off accomplishments. So I get up, I make my bed. As easy as that sounds, I am checking off one accomplishment as soon as I wake up. One of the other things that's really important to me is my devotional time getting active. So before I start work, I actually started here recently. Now I walk on the treadmill and do a YouTube devotional. So I can kind of get both done and get moving. So those have been really big for me as far as personally overcoming some of the self-doubt, is starting with a routine and starting with things that I can easily check off the box before maybe some struggles may occur during the day.
And I do want to go back to something you said, because it's kind of like the premise behind everything for what you and I were going to talk about. And I think it was really the female entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
the females that are in business for themselves. And I think, and I don't think it's really, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world today about female versus male and that kind of
Right.
stuff. And, it's all of this is that we're going to talk about. You've been in this game now for 15 years. And, so this has been going on for 15 years. And quite honestly, it's gone on for a long, long time before that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm personally one that I've always loved the underdogs, and it doesn't matter, male, female. I love, the one who's expected to lose, who comes out on top and wins. That's the story I love.
Right. Right.
But, I've worked with, people of all different walks of life, male and female and everything else over the years. And it's funny because for me, I don't personally, I don't look at somebody and say, "Oh, they're a female, they can't do that." Right. And and I want sometimes, and I can't make assertions and I can't tell you, that's not right, because they're personal experiences. Right. That said, if I do think, and this is where you and I were talking a little bit the other day about how much of it is reality and how much of it is maybe perception,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I say that, and I'll give you like my point of view too. Okay, and it's got nothing to do with the female side of things. It's actually the male side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and I think there's a perception sometimes that everything is like for a woman in business, a lot of stuff's gonna be harder, right? Whereas, like, if you've got guys, and I think one of the things that a lot of people, in fact, being being a female there, would you say
Uh-huh.
sometimes guys just don't talk enough?
They can. They can. And sometimes they'll talk too much when they shouldn't.
Okay, this is true. So my point is, I think there's a lot of self-doubt on both sides.
Yeah.
And I believe like a lot, especially for guys, it's probably a lot of it is more internalized.
Mm-hmm.
They may not say anything. They may leave the room. They may throw something through the wall. They may get mad. They may drive fast down the road. They may do something that maybe looks like them being angry.
Right.
And that's what it looks like for a lot of guys when they
Right.
have the self-doubt. Because and you and I were talking about something the other day where it was both of us are working on something and putting a lot of work into it. And it's like nothing's happening.
Right.
Nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. And that's that self-doubt,
Yes.
right?
And that's, I think, the difference between someone who's successful and not, because so many times when, you're putting in so much work and you're just not seeing those results, somebody who may not be in an entrepreneurial mindset might take that as failure. Whereas someone who's an entrepreneur may understand, I just got to push just a little bit further, just a little bit further. I'm right there. And, it's just grinding and understanding what that looks like. But to your point with self-doubt, the difference between where I am now and where I was when I started it's a world of difference. So when I first started, I mean, like I said, I was young. I was out of college. I didn't even know who I was at the time, right? So when I started, I became a broker at a young age. I think I was 25 when I started my own real estate company. And in my area where I was, that was unheard of. There were only older, usually men. I think I was the only female who was a broker in our area, let alone doing it at 25. And so part of that, I mean, obviously that was a great accomplishment, but I had such an imposter syndrome that I didn't belong there, that a lot of my self-doubt was I need to fit in with them. And so, at the time it was business suits, it was this. I thought I needed to wear, a dress and heels and be fully done up every day of every week, because that is how I was supposed to present myself, because that's what everyone else was doing. And when I was doing that, I didn't realize that instead of attracting my tribe, instead of attracting the clients that I wanted, I was just casting a broad net and just hoping that anything was just catching, in that net, instead of, putting the right bait on that line and getting the specific type of fish and going to the area where I know that that fish is going to be, and just attracting the specific people that I knew were going to be better for my life, for my business, as clients and as mentors.
And it's funny because as you were talking about, because your office was there in Carroll County in Westminster, and the last house that Shelley and I bought in Westminster, I'm not going to mention names, but and it doesn't really matter at this point because he's
Right.
no longer with us. He was an older guy then, but he was our buyer's agent initially.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's funny because I think if he treated me in a way, and I mean, literally to verbatim, the guy turned around at one point, showing us properties and told us to shut our yap.
Yeah.
Okay. And, and it's like, it's not a male female. And then it was not a male female thing. It's just how this guy acted. He was
Right.
just an old school, I'm the smartest guy in the room kind of thing. But to your point, if you get around that kind of stuff a lot, you will
Yes.
end up with a lot of that self-doubt.
Yes.
And
Very
I
much
and
so.
personally, I really believe in when we were away last week, we were with someone else, and it's another female agent that does fantastic. And she was talking about how, she's got her inner circle
Yep.
for her business stuff. Like she plugs in and has a very small circle of people that help elevate her, but she still likes getting around some stuff every now and then, if you get my drift, right?
Yes.
And it's like, she likes listening to her hairdresser.
Uh-huh.
She can't be around that too much,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she's surely not going to take actual advice from her.
Right.
And I'm only repeating what she said. And quite honestly, I would say the same thing about most of the barbers I've had.
Right.
Other than Andy in Ellicott City. He was awesome.
Oh, I
Uh,
heard the stories about him.
yeah, he's a cool dude. Um, but I think that gets to the support system thing
Yes.
that we were talking about. And, because I think, and would you agree that who you consider to be your support system 15 years ago versus 10 years ago versus 5 years ago and maybe
Versus
today
now.
looks
It's completely,
entirely different?
yes, it's very different. And for the longest time, I felt like if I was changing it, or if we were no longer as close as we were, that I was abandoning them. And I don't think that that's the right mindset to have. I think that people can grow apart. I'm still friendly with all the people that either were mentors to me or I was friends with back then, but you need to bring people into your life that serve you and you can serve them. The biggest thing that I've realized is I shut so many people out in my younger years, just because the imposter syndrome. I didn't think that I fit in. So how could I possibly be around all of these other, big names and things like that? And so what I realized is not only did I not have a support system, but then I wasn't able to give back and be the support to other people. And that was a big part that was missing for me as well. And that's part of why I created Conquer, which is a group for real estate women. And it's basically to be that support system that I didn't have and that I feel like is lacking a lot in our real estate industry. So it is and it's not even an educational in real estate. This is us women understand where we're coming from, understand. And for me, it's not just about selling real estate and being successful, because if you don't have faith, family, fitness, your health, and friendships along with being successful in real estate, what is that success actually getting you? You could go home to an empty house, your health could be deteriorating. So my goal with Conquer is to not only build your confidence in real estate, but understand it's the full picture, that there is a support system, that your health and your family and your friendships matter as well.
And Shelly was just talking to somebody else like 30 minutes before this. And it's an agent that, I mean, she's had a lot of stuff going on. And I was sitting like listening to it from afar and listening to all the things this lady has been through. And
Right.
she is still crushing it. But that was one of the things that she said, like your group, is she needed some kind of community.
Yes.
She needed something. And I think, the thing that I would say a lot of people are looking for is something that they can plug into
Right.
and something they can get something from, as you also said, maybe contribute. But the whole premise has to be like it's a non-judgy,
Right.
very holistic kind of an environment. And
Right.
holistic might not be the right word, but
I was
it's
just gonna
a
say I'm not a big foo-foo person, so I'm
no.
not and not to say not holistic, but I take the approach, I am a friendly person. I want to be there as much as I can for anyone. And my goal with Conquer is for others to take when they need and give when they can to
Yep.
other people in the group. That's the goal.
And that's to me, earlier I didn't say it this way, but I do like I consider you to be a badass, and I would say that in a way like if somebody needed help, that you give them the hand
Hmm.
up kind of thing. You'd rip the jacket off your back kind of thing,
Absolutely.
and it's like, hey, you need this, fine, but um, you'd be the one that's there for them,
Right.
but probably not the let's sit, talk, and cry on each other's shoulders kind of thing. I don't know.
I'm not I will do anything that I can for people. And if it's a shoulder to cry on, I will do that as well.
Yeah.
I'm one of those awkward people when it comes to that. It's if you've ever seen those memes that's like someone's upset and you don't know what to say, and you're like, oh, do you need, just something that is completely off topic. So I do my best, but I do a really good job of being there. If you need me at 2 a.m., I will be there at 2 a.m. If you do need an ear to just cry on, I will do that. Anybody I've had, the biggest thing, especially with this whole empowering women thing, and this is not a man hater. I have a ton of guy friends and a ton of respect for men. So this is mostly because of the experiences and I've had a lot of personal experiences throughout my 15 years. And going through all of those, you never know why you're going through all of the stuff that you go through, right? And I think coming out now on the other side, I've now realized that it's because now I can relate to women who are in the trenches going through certain things now. And I can be there for them in different ways that someone else might not. Several different situations where, someone was going through a domestic violence situation. Well, I've been placed in an area where I do property management and I've got investment properties. So they move out to get away from their abuser, and I have a place to put them in. So I can
It's
offer
awesome.
different things that either some people can, or that just because of the way things have been done for me, I am able to give back. And that's such a blessing. And I'm very happy for that.
That's awesome. Well, and it's funny because I was gonna end that. You basically already said it for me. But I was gonna say you might be the shoulder to cry on, but at some point you're gonna be like, okay, now what are we gonna do about that?
Yeah, I'm the one who will roll up my sleeves and work with you to get you to the next phase. That's
Yeah.
what that's how I see myself. It's like, okay, I am here for you, but how are we going to make this better? What can I do? How can I help you? Let's get you ahead.
And actually, I don't know if I ever told you this, but um my mentor, like the first person gave me my first real job. Like I've done all kinds of jobs, but
Right.
my first like I got to put on a tie and go to work kind of job. Um, Female.
Okay.
So her name was Linda. I worked for her in her business for 6 years, and then she sold the business, and I followed her to the next company. She was my boss there for
Wow.
probably another 15 years, somewhere in
Mhm.
there. I can't do the math on that, but no,
That's
not
not
quite.
important. We're not that old, remember?
10 to 12 years, I think. So, the point is like I was with her for a very long time, and I learned a ton from her.
Yeah.
And it's funny because she was a hard ass, but that's where I learned the most.
Hmm.
That was the one. And in the company, so there's about 110 people or something at the company, where I followed her to. And everybody knew her to be a hard ass, but everybody respected her.
Yes.
And everybody could say they learned something from her.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it also, at least for me, the way that I run my company is sometimes the people I'm harder on is because they're the ones I expect so much from because I know that they can do it. And they've already proved themselves time and time again. And I'm just working to make them better. And they just might not even see it yet, and that's always fun to help mold someone in that way.
It's funny. I've done a deep dive on Nick Saban again here recently.
Mhm.
I did it many years ago, but I've done it again, and I watched this it was a quick clip, but it was a funny story, not male female oriented, but it's on the being hard on people. And
Right.
they interviewed one of the players, and I think it's somebody they'd gone through Alabama and moved on, and they said something about, was there ever a time that Coach Saban was ticked off at you? And they used other language, but you know, um, the guy said, "Oh my God." He said, "There was this one practice." And he said, "Coach started yelling and screaming at me and just totally berated me in front of the team and was railing on me. Nothing was good enough." And he just kept on and kept on. And he
Mhm.
said, "Inside, I'm going, I am literally your best player.
Yeah.
I am literally like, I'm first round draft pick. I am." And
Mhm.
he's like in his home. And so later that day, I think it was, they got together and he said, "Coach, what's going on?" And Saban looked at him and he said, "I'm hard on you because I can. I'm
Yeah.
hard on you because everyone on this team looks up to you. And if you're taking your foot off the gas, then they're going to take their foot off the
Yes.
gas."
100%. I,
So,
I love that. And that, it's funny when you were saying that, it just took me back to my sports days. I was a good athlete back in the day, probably not anymore. But every time we had tryouts, it was every year, but I was their star pitcher. Every year I was humbled to the point where I wasn't sure if I was going to make the team because of how hard he was on me. I would be running suicides or doing, sprints around the bases or whatever sport it was at the time. And I'm just like, what did I do to deserve this? Like, am I worse this year than I was last year? What is it? And
yeah,
looking back now, yeah, it sucked at the time, but I am so grateful for that because it gave me the opportunity that one, I only know how to work hard. No matter how good you are, you can always get better. Someone's always doing better than you if you're not putting in that constant, effort and time into whatever passion you're looking to do.
yeah. Well, and I think all of this kind of ties back into that support system,
Yeah.
but also the self-doubt thing. And you and I were talking about how they're kind of linked,
Mm-hmm.
because the it starts with the self-doubt. And I think any of us could have it, but I know again, you've created an entire community in a sense because of this and the
Right.
journey that you've taken and kind of created that support system.
Right.
So, I think it's awesome that you've done that. And, you've got Conquer. But I also, and I'm guessing some of the stuff that you guys cover or what you talk about, because I don't know how many, those of you listening to this, in the beginning, you were talking about how you get up and you have, like now you've and you've changed it. Even as you described it, you were talking about how you changed it
Right.
where it was just your devotional. And now
Mm-hmm.
you're combining, I guess a podcast or a YouTube devotional plus treadmill kind of thing. So you're killing two birds with one stone kind of thing, but you're taking care of you
Right. That's huge.
and you take care of you. And it's funny how that takes care of other stuff.
And what's crazy, especially as a woman being a mom, I've got two kids and, how do you do all that with, also raising a family? But just what you said, I mean, I put my kids first in a lot of things, but number one has to be me because if I'm not in the right headspace, if I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not there for my kids, then what good is that? So, I get up before my children. I get all of those things done before I have to wake my daughter up for school, so all of those things are already done. So it's just about prioritizing your time and making sure that you are a priority. And then that way you can be your best for your family, your kids, the business, whatever it is that comes next. But you should never sacrifice your self-doubt, your self-worth, your fitness, your health, any of those things over any type of success or your family.
And I'll say this because Jenny won't brag on herself. She kind of touched it, but not really. And it is the fact that she says, you said something like, "I try to put my kids first," or something like that. And literally anytime Shelly or I have tried to get a hold of you or call you or text you or something, you're either running and doing something like you're in Raleigh right now, doing whatever it is business related you're doing, or you are taking your kids somewhere or going to meet them somewhere, picking them up from somewhere. Like and the thing I want to point out with this is you're running a business, a very successful business, and you are super present in your kids' lives. And I can tell you right
I
now, there's a
appreciate
lot
that.
of parents that think that those two things can't coexist.
And that's true. And we could touch on a different topic at another point of how I was able to do that with different integrations and thinking differently. But you're right. When I have my kids, I am 100% present. So I have set up my business in a way that I can be 100% in the business when I don't have my kids, and then 100% when I do.
Yep. Well, and I think maybe that's a good setup for round two here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if you don't have any, if you've not seen Jenny's group Conquer, or if you've not heard enough from her, we'll make sure that we've got a link in the description for this video to where if you saw this and you're like, I need to know more about it, then we'll have some information there because I really do feel
Yeah.
like, if you listen to this, and I will tell you, Jenny won't let me in. I don't know why, but she won't let me in Concord. I don't know what the deal is. But if you have interest in it, I would highly recommend you click on the link, learn more about it. You might just find yourself in a different position 6 months to a year later. But yeah, this has been fun.
That's awesome. And I'm going to just do one more little plug for Conquer. We're actually holding our first women's empowerment retreat in a few weeks. It'll be in Maryland. So if anyone's local or wants to come in, it'll be right on the water. It'll be great. A time to get away, reset, refresh, build great relationships, and learn about the same thing, self-doubt and empowering your voice.
Getting into a different circle.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's awesome.
Thanks,
So,
Kevin.
well, I appreciate your time. This has been awesome.
Yes.
And we will coordinate as a round two of this because I think you and I had a very long list of topics that we could talk
I think
about.
we touched on one.
Yeah.
But that's
And
awesome.
it might even be one where maybe you and Shelly do a few of them coming
Yeah.
up soon too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again, Jenny.
Thanks,
And
Kevin.
we will wrap this one up and stay tuned for the next episode.
Thank you.